Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive, fast-moving story, the newly announced U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding. We're going to look closely at the terms of the deal aimed at ending nearly 4 months of war, the huge economic shockwaves it's sending around the world, and, of course, the highly polarized global reactions. Things are moving at breakneck speed, so let's just dive right into the facts as they're unfolding. To give you a true 360-degree view of this complex situation, we'll break it down into 5 parts. First, the peace deal explained. Second, markets and maritime impacts. Third, divided reactions in Washington. Fourth, Middle East responses. And finally, next steps in Geneva. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the peace deal explained. So, what's actually happening on the ground and on the water? Well, the immediate reality is pretty drastic. According to Iran's Supreme National Security Council, the U.S. and Iran have agreed to an immediate, permanent ceasefire across multiple fronts. But crucially, this deal also mandates lifting the U.S. naval blockade on Iran and reopening the highly strategic Strait of Hormuz to international shipping. That is a huge deal. But, this isn't just one single event. It's actually a highly structured, phased rollout. Step 1. That kicked off over the weekend with a digital signature bringing the ceasefire into effect immediately. Step 2 will be the formal in-person signing ceremony in Geneva set for this Friday, June 19th. And then Step 3, this is the big one, triggers a crucial 60-day window for intense discussions focused squarely on Tehran's nuclear program and those broader diplomatic agreements. President Trump actually announced this massive breakthrough directly on Truth Social, taking a bit of a victory lap just before he touched down at the G7 summit in France. He declared the deal complete. He fully authorized the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and the immediate removal of that naval blockade, literally telling the ships of the world to start your engines. Moving on to Section 2, markets and maritime impacts. 4%. That was the immediate reaction from the global market, a 4% drop in oil futures, while equity markets rallied strongly on the news that the guns were finally falling silent. President Trump was quick to tout this, saying oil prices took their biggest plunge and the stock market shot up like a rocket. You could practically feel the global financial system breathing a massive sigh of relief. But hold on, here's where we really need to look at the fine print. Despite all the political announcements, the UK Maritime Trade Operations, or UKMTO, issued a pretty stark warning. They sent out a memo to vessels clarifying that the actual U.S. military blockade on Iranian ports technically remains in full effect until explicit direction is given after Friday's formal signing. Their literal message to ships trying to pass through: do not attempt to cross. And honestly, tensions remain incredibly high out on the water, just 111 nautical miles southeast of Aden, Yemen, and this was shortly after the deal's grand announcement, mind you. A tanker was approached by a small skiff. According to the UKMTO, the armed crew of that skiff actually fired a rocket-propelled grenade at the vessel. So yeah, a digital signature doesn't instantly secure the sea lanes. Now for Section 3, divided reactions in Washington. Back stateside, the political reaction is, well, exactly as polarized as you might expect. On one side of the aisle, Vice President J.D. Vance is actively touting the agreement as a total transformation of the Middle East. He says it ends the war and permanently prevents Iran from pursuing a nuclear weapon. He also pushed back hard on reports about frozen assets, stating firmly that absolutely no money has been released to Iran. But then, on the exact opposite side, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is demanding absolute transparency and an immediate congressional briefing. Schumer is arguing that the Iranian regime is actually more radical now than before the war, that the Strait of Hormuz is under greater Iranian control, and he's seriously questioning what was genuinely gained from this whole conflict. Expanding on the administration's stance, Vice President Vance went on ABC News to clarify exactly how any sanctions relief would work. He stated that, sure, the U.S. is willing to lift some sanctions, but only, and this is a big only, if Iran provides verifiable, long-term commitments to completely abandon its nuclear ambitions. So it's heavily, heavily conditional. Let's look at Section 4, Middle East responses. Okay, so how is this playing out in the region? Well, if you look at Iranian state-controlled media, this is being broadcast as an absolute triumph. Officials like Parliament Speaker Mohammad Ghalibafah are framing the U.S. lifting the blockade as a historic surrender by their adversaries. Furthermore, Iran's President Pezeshkian noted that Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei played a direct role in shaping this agreement to safeguard Iran's national interests. Make no mistake, they are heavily framing this as a definitive final victory over the US and Israel. Meanwhile, over in Israel, the reaction is sharply critical, but it's mostly aimed internally. Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid heavily criticized Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the deal. Lapid basically called the diplomatic outcome a failure that does not benefit Israel at all. He's even demanding that Netanyahu step down from mishandling diplomacy with the US while the IDF was out there fighting the actual battles. And let's look at the reality on the ground right now, because it's tense. While Hezbollah officials confirmed they have indeed halted operations since the announcement, they explicitly stated they are heavily monitoring Israel's compliance. On the flip side, Israel's defense minister confirmed that IDF forces will absolutely not be withdrawing from Lebanon, regardless of this broader US-Iran deal. So the regional military posturing, still incredibly tight. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Next Steps in Geneva. At the G7 summit, French President Emmanuel Macron made a massive announcement regarding international enforcement. He confirmed that European allies aren't just watching, they are standing by and ready to act. France is actually preparing to deploy major assets, including mine-clearing vessels and their nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, to actively secure the physical reopening of the Strait of Hormuz within a matter of days. So, let's map out this week's timeline. The momentum from Sunday's digital signing carried President Trump directly into Monday's G7 discussions in France, sitting alongside European leaders who are backing the deal. All of this diplomatic groundwork leads straight into this Friday. That is when the formal signing ceremony will actually take place in Geneva, Switzerland. And it's notably being hosted by Pakistan's Prime Minister, who, alongside Qatar, really helped mediate this whole outcome. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought derived from a former Pentagon strategist we looked at in our source material. He noted that history teaches us a hard lesson. Ending a war and securing a durable peace are simply not the same thing. The guns might be falling silent, but with a 60-day clock on intense nuclear talks about to start ticking, we have to ask ourselves, is this memorandum the true beginning of lasting regional stability, or is it merely a strategic pause in a much longer conflict? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on Geneva this Friday.